I never imagined I would find the receipts. They lay there, innocently tucked between the pages of a book she had left on the coffee table, a book I had seen her read multiple times. I picked it up, intending to return it to the shelf, but the slip of paper caught my eye. At first, I thought it was just a grocery list, something mundane and unremarkable. But as I unfolded it, my heart sank. Dinner for two at that upscale restaurant we used to love. The one where we celebrated anniversaries and milestones. The date was recent, just a few days ago. My breath hitched in my throat as I scanned the other items on the receipt: flowers from the local florist, a hotel charge for a night's stay. Each line was a dagger cutting deeper into my heart, each detail confirming the worst of my suspicions. Betrayal. I felt rage bubbling up inside me, mixing with a profound sorrow that threatened to engulf me. How could she do this to us? To me? I thought of all the times I had trusted her, all the moments that built the foundation of our life together. My mind raced back to our wedding day, her smile, the way her eyes sparkled as she walked down the aisle. I remembered the vows we exchanged, promises of loyalty and love. Now those words felt hollow, like a cruel joke played on me by fate. I stood there, paralyzed by a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion. I could hardly breathe as I clutched the receipts in my fist, feeling their sharp edges digging into my palm. My mind was a cacophony of thoughts. How could I confront her? What would I say? Would she deny it? Would she lie to my face? I felt a sudden rush of adrenaline. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I couldn't let her slip away, pretending everything was normal while I was drowning in this sea of betrayal. I needed to confront her, to show her that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. As I paced the room, my thoughts spiraled. I replayed our recent conversations, looking for signs I'd missed. Were there moments when her laughter didn't quite reach her eyes, times when she seemed distracted? I felt sick. I had always prided myself on being perceptive, but how had I let this happen? Was I so blinded by love that I missed the signs? I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I could feel the weight of the receipts in my hand, a tangible proof of her betrayal. I had to confront her with this evidence. There was no more room for denial. I walked toward the bedroom, my heart pounding in my chest. The thought of facing her, of seeing her reaction, made me feel nauseous. What would I say? Would I scream, cry, or just stand there in disbelief? I opened the door to find her sitting on the bed, scrolling through her phone. The sight of her, so oblivious, made my blood boil. She looked up and smiled, but the warmth of her smile felt like ice in my veins. I took another breath, steeling myself for the confrontation. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. Her smile faltered, and I could see the moment her carefree demeanor shifted to something more guarded. I stepped closer, holding the receipts out in front of her. "You didn't expect me to have proof, did you?" The silence that followed was deafening, filled with unspoken words and shattered trust. The moment I held out the receipts, time seemed to freeze. I watched as her expression shifted from confusion to realization, her eyes widening as she processed what was happening. I could see the color drain from her face, leaving behind a ghostly pallor. It was as if I had pulled the rug out from under her, and she was teetering on the brink of a precipice. I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction mixed with a deep sorrow. "Where did you get these?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. It was a question that seemed almost too simple for the gravity of the moment. I could tell she was trying to regain control, to navigate her way out of the situation. But there was no escape from the truth that loomed between us. "I found them in your book," I replied, my voice steady but laced with an edge of anger. I took a step closer, watching her reactions closely. "Dinner for two, flowers, a hotel. You think I wouldn't notice? You think I wouldn't put the pieces together?" She opened her mouth, perhaps to deny it, but the words seemed to escape her. Instead, she looked down at the receipts, her eyes darting over the printed words as if expecting them to vanish if she stared long enough. I could see the gears turning in her mind, calculating her next move. "Please, let's talk about this," she finally said, her voice softening. "It's not what you think." Not what I think. The phrase was a trigger for my anger. How could she even say that? The evidence was right there, laid out in black and white. I felt my heart race, the confusion and hurt morphing into a burning rage. "Then what is it? Explain it to me, because from where I'm standing it looks like you've been lying to me." She looked up, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I could see the fear in her gaze, the realization that her world was about to come crashing down. For a moment, I felt a flicker of empathy, but it was quickly drowned out by the overwhelming sense of betrayal. "I made a mistake," she said, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a moment of weakness. A moment of weakness." The phrase echoed in my mind and I felt my stomach churn. A moment of weakness. That was her justification. I had never imagined that the woman I loved, the woman I had built my life with, would reduce our entire relationship to a fleeting lapse in judgment. "What about our moments?" I asked, my voice rising. "What about the years we've spent together, the promises we made? Did they mean nothing to you?" Her face crumpled and I could see the tears spilling over. "I'm so sorry," she said, her words barely a whisper. "I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I could handle it, but I got caught up in something I couldn't control." Caught up in something. The words felt like a slap in the face. I had trusted her completely, and now it felt as if the very foundation of our relationship was crumbling beneath us. I took a step back, trying to regain my composure. My heart was racing, and I could feel a mix of anger and sorrow threatening to overwhelm me. I had always believed in the sanctity of our love, and now it felt like a cruel illusion. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice low and dangerous. I needed to know the truth, even if it hurt. Her hesitation spoke volumes. "It was just someone from work," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "We were both vulnerable and it just happened." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Vulnerable. I felt a swell of emotions, anger, sadness, betrayal, each one crashing over me like a wave. I had poured my heart and soul into our marriage, and she had chosen to betray that trust for a fleeting moment of passion with someone else. "I can't believe this," I said, shaking my head in disbelief. "You think you can just brush it off as a mistake, that I can just forgive and forget?" "I know I've messed up," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "But I love you. I want to fix this." Love. The word felt tainted now, a hollow promise that rang false in the wake of her betrayal. I stood there, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, grappling with the reality of what had just unfolded. I had so many questions, but all I could manage was a single thought. How could she do this to us? The air in the room felt heavy, charged with a mix of tension and unresolved emotions. I could see her desperation, the way she clutched her hands together as if trying to hold on to something solid in the chaos. But I was struggling to find my footing. The trust we had built over the years felt like a fragile glass sculpture, now shattered at my feet. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the storm brewing inside me. "Fix this?" I echoed, my voice sharp. "How do you even begin to fix something like this? You've broken us." The words hung in the air, a painful reminder of the reality we were facing. "I know," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I want the chance to make it right. I love you and I've never stopped loving you." Her words felt like a lifeline tossed into turbulent waters, but I was too far gone, caught in the undertow of betrayal. I didn't want to be swayed by her pleas. I wanted to be angry, to let the hurt wash over me and drown out any flicker of hope. "Do you even understand what you've done?" I asked, my voice low and strained. "This isn't just a mistake, it's a choice. You chose to be with someone else. You chose to betray me." "I was confused," she said, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean to hurt you, it just happened. I thought it was just a fling, something that wouldn't matter in the long run." A fling. Word felt like a gut punch. I couldn't wrap my head around it. How could she trivialize it so easily? I felt the anger boiling within me, threatening to spill over. "You thought it wouldn't matter. You thought you could have your cake and eat it too." "I didn't think it through," she replied, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I was caught up in the moment, and now I realize how stupid I was. I was wrong, and I'm so sorry." Sorry. It felt like a word thrown around too easily, a band-aid for a gaping wound. I felt my heart harden. I didn't want her apologies, I wanted the truth. I wanted to understand how we had arrived at this moment. "Who is he?" I pressed again, my voice steady. "I need to know." She hesitated, her eyes darting away from mine. "His name is Mark. He's a colleague. We were working late on a project and things just escalated." Mark. The name echoed in my mind like a curse. I had met Mark a few times at company gatherings, always the charming type, with an easy smile and a way of making people feel at ease. How had I not seen the danger lurking beneath the surface? "I can't believe this," I said, shaking my head. "You let him into our lives, into our home, and now look where we are." "I never meant for it to go this far," she insisted, her voice rising in desperation. "It was just a few nights. It meant nothing, I swear." A few nights. The phrase felt like a knife twisting deeper. "You think that makes it better, that it was just a few nights of fun?" My voice rose in anger. "You do get to decide what counts as betrayal. You've shattered everything we built together." "I know I've hurt you," she said, her voice breaking. "But I love you. I want to work through this. Please give me a chance." Her pleas felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. I wanted to scream, to lash out and let the hurt pour out of me, but I was trapped in this cycle of anger and confusion. "How can I trust you again?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll do whatever it takes," she promised, her eyes pleading. "I'll go to counseling. I'll be completely open with you. I'll prove to you that I can be trusted again." Counseling, the thought made me feel sick. I had never envisioned our future involving therapy sessions to mend a broken marriage. I had always believed we were solid, that our love was unshakable. "I don't know if I can do this," I admitted, feeling the weight of despair settle over me. "Every time I look at you, all I'll see is the betrayal. I don't know how to move past this." Her face crumpled, and I could see the anguish etched across her features. "I understand if you need time, but please don't give up on us. We've fought for our love before. Let's fight for it again." Fight for it again. The words resonated within me, but I wasn't sure if I had the energy left to fight. I felt like a soldier returning from battle, weary and broken, and here she was asking me to pick up arms once more. "I need to think," I said finally, my voice heavy with uncertainty. "I can't promise anything right now." She nodded, tears still streaming down her cheeks as the realization of what she had done settled in. I turned away, needing space to breathe, to process the whirlwind of emotions that had taken over my life. As I walked out of the room, I felt a part of me slipping away. I had trusted her, and now that trust lay in ruins. I needed answers, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to face the truth. I spent the night tossing and turning, my mind racing with memories of better days intertwined with the harsh reality of betrayal. The weight of the receipts lay heavy on my heart, a constant reminder of the trust that had been so carelessly shattered. I replayed our conversation over and over, dissecting each word, searching for meaning in the chaos. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her smile, the way she would light up when I walked through the door after a long day. But now, that same face was marred by tears and guilt. How could someone I loved so deeply betray me in such a profound way? The anger I felt was visceral, a fire that burned deep within me, but it was intertwined with sadness and disbelief. Morning came too quickly, and I rose to the sound of silence. The house felt different, hollow, as if it were a shell of what it once was. The laughter that used to echo through the hallways was replaced by an eerie stillness. I could hear the clock ticking, each second a reminder of the reality I was now faced with. I walked into the kitchen, where she was already brewing coffee. Her back was turned to me, and I felt a pang of sadness at the sight. In that moment, I wanted to reach out, to hold her and tell her that everything would be okay, but I was paralyzed by the weight of my emotions. "Good morning," she said, her voice tentative as she turned to face me. I could see the hope in her eyes, but it was tempered by the fear of what I might say. "Morning," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. I didn't want to engage in a conversation that would only ignite the anger bubbling beneath the surface. Instead, I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat at the table, trying to gather my thoughts. The silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. I could feel her gaze on me, searching for signs of forgiveness, but all I felt was confusion. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but I couldn't find the words. Finally, she broke the silence. "I know you need time, and I understand if you're angry. I just want you to know that I'm here, ready to talk whenever you are." Her words felt like a lifeline, but I wasn't ready to reach for it. "I don't even know where to start," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Start with how you feel," she suggested gently. "I want to understand what you're going through to help you process this." How I felt, The question hung in the air, and I took a deep breath, trying to articulate the whirlwind of emotions. "I feel betrayed," I said slowly. "I feel like I don't even know who you are anymore. This isn't just a mistake, it's a choice you made. You chose to be with someone else." "I know," she said, her voice trembling. "And I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. It was a stupid decision, one I regret every single day." Regret. The word echoed in my mind, but it felt insufficient. Regret didn't change what had happened. It didn't erase the pain. What about our love, our life together? Did any of it mean anything to you? "Of course it did," she replied, her voice rising. "I love you. I never stopped loving you, even when I made that terrible choice." I was confused and scared, and I let my emotions get the best of me. Confused and scared, I couldn't wrap my mind around it. I had always thought we were a team, that we faced challenges together. "If you were confused, why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you talk to me about it?" "I thought I could handle it," she said, her eyes pleading. "I thought it was just a moment, that it wouldn't matter, but then it spiraled out of control, spiraled out of control." I felt a flicker of anger rise within me. "You were willing to risk everything for a moment of passion. You thought it wouldn't matter." "I know I was wrong," she insisted, tears streaming down her face. "I can't change what I did, but I want to change how we move forward. I want to fight for us. Fight for us." The phrase felt like a bitter pill to swallow. I wanted to believe her, to trust that we could rebuild, but the path ahead felt shrouded in uncertainty. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said, my heart heavy. "I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again." Her face fell, and I could see the weight of my words settle over her. "I understand," she said softly, "but please just give me a chance to prove that I can be better. I'll do whatever it takes." I wanted to scream that I didn't want to fight for something that felt so broken. I wanted to tell her that I felt like a fool for believing in us. Instead, I fell silent, grappling with the emotional turmoil that raged within me. As I sat there, I couldn't help but wonder if love was enough to overcome this. Could we rebuild what had been shattered? Or was this the beginning of the end? The days that followed were a blur of confusion and heartache. Each morning, I woke up hoping that the weight of betrayal would lift, that I would find clarity in the chaos. But instead, I found myself stuck in a cycle of anger and disbelief. The house felt like a battlefield, and every room echoed with the remnants of our shattered trust. I tried to go through the motions of daily life, work, chores, even interactions with friends, but everything felt hollow. My laughter felt forced, my smiles strained. Each time I caught a glimpse of her, the memories of her betrayal flooded back, choking me with hurt. I could see her trying to reach out, offering apologies and assurances, but I was still too raw, too wounded to accept her words. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I returned home to find her waiting for me in the living room. The dim light cast a soft glow around her, but it did little to soften the reality of what had happened. She looked up as I walked in, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice tentative. I hesitated, feeling a surge of frustration. "What more is there to say? I'm still processing everything." "I know, but I want to show you that I'm committed to making this work," she replied, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I've made an appointment for us to see a couples therapist. I think it could help." Therapy. The word felt foreign, like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. Part of me wanted to reject the idea outright, to push her away and let the pain fester, but another part of me, one that still held onto the love we had built, wondered if it might be a step in the right direction. "I don't know if I'm ready for that," I admitted, my voice heavy. "How can I trust a therapist to fix what's broken between us?" She stepped closer, her eyes pleading. "I know it's a long road, but I want to fight for us. I want to understand what led me to make that choice and how we can heal together." I took a deep breath, weighing her words. I had always believed in the power of communication and the strength of love, but could we really navigate this treacherous terrain? "Okay," I said finally, my heart pounding. "I'll go to therapy with you, but I need you to understand that this isn't going to be easy for me. I'm still angry and I'm still hurt." "I understand," she replied, relief washing over her face. "And I'll do everything I can to earn back your trust." That night, as I lay in bed, I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps therapy could help us unravel the tangled mess of emotions and find a way forward. but the fear of being hurt again loomed large, casting a long shadow over my heart. The following week, we attended our first therapy session. I sat on the couch, feeling a mix of anxiety and apprehension as the therapist introduced herself. She was warm and approachable, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was stepping into a minefield. "Thank you both for being here," the therapist said, her voice soothing. "I know this is a difficult time for you. Let's start by discussing what brought you here." As we began to share our feelings, I found myself grappling with the emotions I had tried to suppress. I spoke about my anger, my feelings of betrayal, and the confusion that accompanied them. Each word felt like a weight lifted, but it was also a reminder of the pain that had invaded our lives. "My infidelity was a mistake," my wife said, tears in her eyes. "I never intended to hurt him. I was lost and I didn't know how to handle my emotions. I thought I could manage it, but I was wrong." The therapist nodded, encouraging her to explore those feelings further. "It's essential to understand the underlying emotions that led to those choices," she said. "What were you feeling at that time?" "I felt neglected," my wife admitted, her voice trembling. "I thought I was doing everything right, but I felt so alone. I didn't know how to express that to him." Her words struck a chord within me. I realized that we had both been living in our own silos, failing to communicate our needs and emotions. Perhaps we had both contributed to the distance that had grown between us. As the session continued, I felt a mixture of anger and empathy. I wanted to scream at her for what she had done, but I also recognized the pain that had driven her to seek solace elsewhere. It was a complicated web of emotions, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to untangle it. After the session ended, we walked out into the cool evening air. The weight of the conversation lingered between us, but there was also a sense of relief. We had taken a step, however small, toward addressing the issues that had plagued our relationship. "I'm glad we did that," she said softly, glancing at me. "I think it's a start." "Yeah," I replied, my heart still heavy, "but it's going to take a lot more than one session to fix this." "I know," she said, determination shining in her eyes, "but I'm willing to put in the work if you are." I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope for the first time in weeks. Perhaps this was the beginning of a new chapter, one where we could rebuild our trust and find our way back to each other. But deep down, I knew it would take time, patience, and a willingness to confront the painful truths that had brought us to this point. The following weeks were a whirlwind of therapy sessions, late-night conversations, and moments of raw vulnerability. Each session peeled back layers of hurt, revealing the insecurities and fears that had led us down this painful path. I found myself grappling with emotions I had long buried, and with each revelation, I felt both a sense of liberation and an overwhelming weight. As we navigated the rocky terrain of our relationship, I began to understand the complexities of trust and love. I learned that love wasn't always enough to shield us from pain, but it could be a powerful force for healing. My wife and I shared our fears, our regrets, and the dreams we once had for our future together. The conversations were often difficult, filled with tears and anger, but they were necessary. One evening, after a particularly intense session, we sat on the couch, the weight of our journey heavy in the air. I could see the exhaustion etched on her face, but there was also a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "I never realized how much we had both been holding back," she said softly. "I thought I could manage my feelings on my own, but it only pushed us further apart." I nodded, feeling the truth of her words resonate within me. I was so focused on providing for us, on being the perfect husband, that I didn't see how lonely you felt. I thought I was doing everything right, but I failed to check in with you." Her gaze softened and she reached for my hand. "I want to rebuild what we had. I want to be better. For both of us." "Me too," I replied, squeezing her hand tightly. The warmth of her touch felt like a lifeline, a reminder that despite everything, we still had a connection worth fighting for. As we continued to attend therapy, I started to recognize the patterns in our relationship, how we had both contributed to the distance that had grown between us. We learned to communicate openly, to express our needs and fears without judgment. It was a slow process, but with each step, I felt the walls I had built around my heart begin to crumble. There were moments of doubt, times when I questioned whether I could truly forgive her. I would lie awake at night, replaying the hurtful memories in my mind, but I also found myself thinking about the good times we had shared, the laughter, the adventures, the love that had once felt unbreakable. It was a delicate balance, one that required constant effort and introspection. On a particularly quiet evening after a long day, we sat together in the garden, the sun setting in a blaze of color. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool breeze on my skin. "You know, I never thought we would end up here," I said, glancing at her. "I thought our love was unshakable." "I did too," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I've learned that love is not just about the good times, it's about how we navigate the storms together." Her words struck a chord within me. I realized that we were both learning, growing from this experience. I was beginning to understand that forgiveness wasn't a single act, it was a journey, a choice I had to make every day. As we continued to work through our issues, I found myself feeling lighter. The anger and resentment that had once consumed me began to fade, replaced by a cautious sense of hope. I knew our journey was far from over, but I felt a renewed sense of commitment to our relationship. One evening, after a particularly productive therapy session, I looked at her and said, "I think I can forgive you." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of relief. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling. "I promise to work every day to earn back your trust. I believe you." I replied, my heart swelling with a mix of emotions. "But it's going to take time. We need to be patient with each other." "I'm ready for that," she said, her voice steady. "I want to show you that I can be the partner you deserve." As the days turned into weeks, I found myself embracing the possibility of a renewed future. We began to create new memories, slowly rediscovering the joy in our relationship. We went on dates, laughed together, and shared our dreams for the future. It was a fragile beginning, but it was a beginning nonetheless. With each passing day, I felt the weight of betrayal lifting. I was learning to trust again, not only in her but also in myself. I realized that our love was not defined by the mistakes we had made, but by our commitment to grow and heal together. In the end, I understood that love is not just about the absence of pain. It's about the presence of understanding, compassion, and the willingness to fight for one another. We had both stumbled, but we were learning to stand again, hand in hand, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As I looked at her, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We were still a work in progress, but I was willing to embrace the journey, one step at a time.